My first memory is, of course, the look test where the look of Avantika was coined, and for me that's when I knew that it's going to be something extremely different and something I have never attempted and something that people have never seen. So for me, that was a very memorable day where we coined the look of Avantika.
The very challenging task of creating a language and the other hard part in this movie was having throughout the movie, the Tamil that we used in this movie, we wanted it to be not very old and not very new, this style. So we had to maintain the words in such a way that even a modern Tamil a person can actually understand the what is being said. Um, so that was very challenging. So throughout the movie, we had to convey everything that's there on the thing with dialogue.
So it's all started because we were to do a project with Rajmouli. We had done one project prior called Maryad Ramana with Rajmouli, and we wanted to collaborate again on a bigger project, and that's how it all started to work on a bigger project, and that's where Baahubali happened.
For me, it was the introduction where she gets introduced with a fight in a slushy, muddy forest where I had never done a full-fledged fight before or never come out in that kind of an avatar before. So I also didn't know what to expect out of myself at that point of time. But I think I could completely go through that process only because of Rajamouli sir, um, Peter Heen sir, and Prabhas. Like they were the three people who really, really were the reason why it all they made the entire process for me much easier.
He asked me like, can you bring some language which is extinct? So can we use some old extinct language, or will it be possible for you to create a new language? So he gave the challenge. So we all came up with this thing. So I told him I had developed a language long back, but I totally forgot about that. Maybe I'll just take that one and maybe change that a bit. So I took that old language which I had developed a small language with kids actually. So I named it Click. It was CLIQ was the name of the language. So I took the language and actually changed a few things and added a few grammar elements, added the click sounds like a kind of sounds, and then made them into part of the grammar, and created a few sentences. And the next day I went met him, and I narrated the dialogue session, and he was excited. He loved the click sounds and the harsh sounds in the language. He said like, make it very harsh because I'm not going to use subtitles. So it is going to be there. When people listen to it, they must actually find the terror. They should actually be terrified by just listening to the sounds of the language. So that was one instruction which he gave me, which actually was made me think a lot in terms of like the association between sounds and meaning. So whenever we are using rough sounds for things which are kind of not very soft, we don't consider the things soft. It's like the pleasantness of a word, right? So how we map those. So these things went inside the language. So whenever I created a word, I created the words sounds based on the pleasantness of the meaning. So there's a good correlation between the pleasantness of the meaning and pleasantness of the sounds that we hear. So it was fun actually doing that one. And then once he loved that, he called everyone. He called Vijendra Prasad garu, he called Kirwani garu. He asked me to tell the dialogues to everyone. So everyone started loving the dialogues. And
when the script was narrated, me and Prasad, my partner, were completely blown away by the characters and the story, and it was a beautiful story. But of course, we knew the scale was very big, even at the time, and I knew that the budgets would be much more than what the market was for the film at that time. So after that's the reason we had to go back to the drawing board and see if we could make it into two parts, because we actually we all felt, Rajmouli and all of us felt that the story was not wouldn't fit in a 3-hour film, even a 3-hour film. It would be much bigger than a 3-hour film. So considering the cost and the budgets needed to make this film, and also that the story was much longer than for a regular length feature film, So there is that budgets wise, we knew for a fact that it was much more than what was this thing, but also we did not anticipate that it would become the budgets would increase to the extent that they did when they were when we were at the early stages. So only when we really got into the project and then we started making the film did we realize the depth of the film, the depth of that there was much more that we had to do, and a lot more money had to be spent to get to the scale and the vision that Rajmouli had in mind, because nobody had attempted this kind of a film before, and we were a little naive, I would say, that to think that it could be accomplished in a much smaller budget than we thought. So only when we got in, we realized that we need much more time, much more money, and much more finances to make this happen. But then we were already had our feet wet, and we decided we had to go push it all the way through, and I think that's what we did. Prabhas was the only option. The script was written for Prabhas in mind. So Rajmouli and his father, the whole thing started with Prabhas being the main character, playing the lead role. So there was no question about Prabhas. With regards to with Devasena, again, after the script was written, Rajmouli's first thought was Devasena. For Devasena was Anushka, and Rajmouli narrated to Anushka, and she was immediately, she said yes. For Rana, we had we had a couple of options. A couple of thoughts. One was we were looking at a Hollywood actor at the time, who had done from Game of Thrones. But then after that, Rana's film had released. Just then, one of Rana's film has released, and Krishnam Vande Jagadguru, I think. And he was Rajmouli saw the film, and he was really impressed with Rana, and he felt that Rana could suit the role, and that's when we pitched it to Rana. So Rana is my neighbor also, and we're good friends. So he took some time because it was a anti role, it was a villain's role. So he was not. Although he was very excited, he wanted some time to understand whether he should do the role at this point in his career, being a villain's role and stuff like that. But ultimately, he was excited and he came on board. I think the toughest for us was casting. Shivagami was one of the toughest. We took a lot of time, and also Tamanna's role. Tamanna also took a while. We went through a lot of options before we finally settled on, I think, the perfect for Shivagami, which was Ramya Krishna Garu, and then Tamanna for Avantika. But we got the best. They got one of the best roles.
No, actually, I didn't have a clue of how it will be received, but definitely had this feeling that this is not something any of us have done, and this is something special, and it is going to be something that people are going to remember. But at the scale, that scale was something that no one had predicted.
From the beginning, we never had this thing, because if this was Rajmouli's first movie, I would have had doubt, because I would not have able to see how it's going to shape up, how it's going to be. But because we've already seen like Mahadira, we've already seen Nani, we've already seen all his movies, we know what he's capable of doing, what he's capable of doing. And the story had the right emotions. The first time he narrated the scenes, sequences, we had certain things that hit us very hard. Okay, so we know that he's a person who takes an emotion and he builds things over it, and how he presents that visually, we know that. So not a single point I felt that this effort is going to go in vain. I know they're putting a lot of effort. We knew that it's going to everyone's going to get the benefits, but we never expected this bigger success. That is, I personally, I never expected this bigger success. So this one reaching so many people beyond the audience who we expected it to reach. So that is a good thing.
So on the release day itself, so the days leading to the release were one of the most stressful days for us as producers, and also as filmmakers, for Rajmouli and for all of us, because I think it was trying to put together all the finances and getting the film to release on schedule on July 10th was a huge task, because we had obviously exceeded the budgets planned, and we had borrowed quite a bit of money to finance this film. So there were a lot of financial pressures leading up to the release. On the day of the release, there was mixed talks from the Hindi. There was a premiere on the day before. There was a press screening the day before on July 9th evening, and we got fantastic talk from reviews and appreciation from Hindi, and also in fact from Tamil and most of the states. But from Telugu, we had these midnight shows, the fan shows starting the early hours of the 10th, and we had very bad talk that was coming, that the film was not up to expectations and such. And so the early morning and leading up to midday on Friday was quite a tense day, because there was a lot of mixed talk happening. People were saying that it might not do well in the box office. It might have to, we might be facing some tough time at the box office. But over the next day or two, by Saturday, I think, and by Sunday it was settled down, and then we knew by Monday morning shows that it was a fantastic. It was going to be a big thing in the box office. So the Friday and Saturday were quite stressful. Yeah.
I think the kind of time we all as actors, as technicians got to spend on that film, like we really became like, I mean, however cliched that sounds, and I don't like saying that a lot, but in this case, it really felt like a family. Like we were a truly one unit, and people really worked only towards the betterment of what the final product was. Like nobody cared about their personal comfort or how they were feeling. It was more about, okay, you know what, let me do this because this is going to look good. So I think everyone, not just the actors but the technicians, the entire crew of assistants, the crew of assistants in every department, they really worked very, very hard and quite selflessly at that.
Click language, I didn't actually. I thought it's just going to be a fun element there and it's going to be thing just for the movie. But after the movie is when I realized the impact on the day of the first day screening, like how much people were excited and people started creating memes and they started talking and things. So whenever I go to colleges or schools, the kids there, the students there, they come to me and ask me like, how do you say I love you in Clicky? Can you teach us Clicky? It's like, how do you? And then I was curious, like it happened after 3 or 4 years of the movie release. So then's when I realized that it's a good time to make that into a proper language, create a script and things like that. So and we launched the Kiliki.in site recently. And a lot of people are now learning the language. It's a good thing. I never expected this to happen when I was working for the movie. I love the process when we actually were all sitting on the floor, Prabhas, Rana, Anushka, Satyaraj sir, Nasir sir, Rajamouli Garu, and Telugu writers. We had a couple of Telugu writers. We were all sitting on the floor and he'd describe a scene and we'll write the dialogues and everyone will act out their parts and we'll all just be rehearsing those things as and when we were creating. Had a great fun and great experience and certain things were very like it was on this spot. From this spot the director will be calling me and telling me like they both are entering a pub and they have just for 10 seconds they have to just exchange a dialogue between them and get inside the pub. I don't want to just be entering inside that. I want a dialogue for that particular thing. So that should actually tell about their characters also, something like this. So he gave a kind of a challenging, but not more than 2 or 3 words. So that was another challenge. So 3 words with their things. So at the time, Rana will be asking Kattiya Buttiya. He'll just be asking Kattiya Buttiya. So, and to which Prabhas will be replying, Kurmayanadai Payanpaduthala. So which one is sharp? Whichever one is sharper, we use that one. So these are kind of things that we had fun creating. So it was last minute. It was about to being shot. So these are kind of small fun challenges and things that we did and we enjoyed. So.
I feel for me, what it did is it completely opened up my mind to the perspective that I can look like any character. I can physically metamorphosize not just not just by my action, but also physically I can change. That really also gave me the courage to experiment with different characters. Now I don't feel I in fact now I search for what is something I have not done, what can I do that's different. So it opened up my mind towards that, and like from typical girl next door, I think that I broke that mold and kind of tried to do all kind of different stuff. So I think that's what was my biggest takeaway from Bahubali.
I'm happy now. A lot of people are learning Kiliki. So I'm teaching Kiliki to a lot of people now. So around 30, 40 people now can speak the language. So they can communicate in Kiliki. And a bunch of kids, like the last batch which I completed, they all penned stories in Kiliki. So short stories in Kiliki. And they're writing poems now. We're having a lot of fun with the language. It's all started there.
Absolutely, there was a lot of learning in the first part and the second part also. I mean, nobody had we had none of us had, or I don't think anybody in the industry had experience producing the scale of the film, a film on that scale. So one of the main things we learned was our pre-production. Although we had spent a year on the pre-production, designing sets and prepping for the production, it was not enough. We needed to spend a lot more time on we could have or we should have spent a lot more time on pre-production, budgeting, and designing all the things required for the shoot, and planning for the shoot. And also the visual effects in the first part, we wanted to improve the quality of visual effects by the time it came into the second part. So I think these two were from the production side, were the most important learnings, to spend more time on pre-production and also on the post, to get a better quality in the post.